Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you for coming. We have a very special guest today on this episode of Trainer Profiles. We have Poke Knowledge cards here. And so I want to say thank you for coming on. Welcome to the channel, Poke Knowledge. In this episode, we're going to talk about some interesting things, but we're going to start off just by asking you to kind of introduce yourself. What's the name you like people to kind of use when they're talking to you? Your social media handle, maybe where can people reach out to you if they don't already know you? I'm sure if they're here right now, they should know you, but give them another chance. Where
Yeah,
can these people find you?
yeah, definitely. But first off, Josh, I just want to say, thank you for having me on this channel. I've been a big fan of your channel ever since I met you at the Leonhardt Pop Shop. I've been subscribed to your channel since then, watching all the content you're putting out. I know you've been doing a like this trainer spotlight series, and I know you had Mason on pretty recently, and these have been awesome watches because I do love this long form type conversation. But my channel is very similar to that. I do some shorter videos. I more in the past I call them meme type videos, and yeah, meme is usually like an insult to most people, but no, my videos were literally meme videos. There was memes flashing across the screen as I was talking, but I've
Love
developed
them.
it into a
Love
little
them.
more of a podcast type series. And hopefully after this video is over, you'll put a description to my YouTube channel. It's Poke Knowledge Cards. Basic Trainer, shout out to Basic Trainer out there. He kind of gave me the nickname PK, and it's just the new name I go with. So everybody refers to me as PK now, and it's just my name. but
Yeah, so
yeah.
actually, I do want to sort of, this is a question I sometimes throw in towards the end, but this is a perfect question that I want to make you a little bit uncomfortable with, though, about your name. What is the story with the name, by the way? I try to ask people at some point in the interview like where the name came from, and I kind of know you don't like your own name, so I want to hear from your own. What's the story with your name? Where did your name come from? Since it's kind
Yeah,
of
so
been
it's
brought up.
interesting. Yeah, so it's interesting you say that. I've talked about this on my channel actually. So when I really original making my channel was born out of the quarantine. And what I mean by that is how I was born out of the quarantine was I was bored. I had nothing to do. I really started consuming a ton of Pokemon YouTube content. As I was watching it, I was starting to watch some of these more investment and speculate in, talk about modern, talk about vintage type channels. And I was like, I don't agree with a lot of the things some of these people are saying. So I could do this. I can make videos talk about Pokemon. And I'd had like E4 accounts in the past, and I've had names that people would probably easily recognize me by. And I was like, I don't want to do that. If I do this channel, I want to start as organically and as fresh as I could possibly do it, meaning creating brand new Instagram accounts just for the channel, creating new YouTube handles, and then just seeing if people wanted to listen. And at the very beginning, I was like, I want to just going to make this a very, learning based type channel, something as super simple as the difference between like first edition, shadowless, and unlimited cards, like the most basic of the basics, and then go into gold stars, and then go into the more obscure stuff like reverse hollow TV reporters from EX Drag, and like just do the whole end of the spectrum and have more knowledge base. And so that's where the name Poke Knowledge came from. But as my channel grew and it started to become more like the conversation and stuff, I definitely dislike that name, Poke Knowledge, because I feel like it came off a little condescending in a way. It's like, oh, like this is the knowledgeable channel. And if I knew what I knew now back then, it would definitely be a different name. But it's too late. I've already like gone way past that. So now I just embrace it in a way. But everybody calls me PK anyways. So I don't even really think about my name as Poke Knowledge Card. So, but that's to answer your
Yeah, no,
question.
PK, your name is fantastic. I love Poke Knowledge. It's a good name. I think it's perfect for YouTube specifically too, because like it was what your channel is about. Like you said, they're informative videos. I think even with these sort of more long form, the type of things that you do on your channel, like the podcasts and the interviews and the lives that you do, I think even those have a more informative nature to them rather than, even though they are entertaining, I think they err on the side of being informative. Like you typically have a topic, you have some sort of a intention when you go live with someone. It's not just like, oh, let's go live and talk the market. No, that does get talked about, but like just like tonight, we'll probably talk about it. But when you said that you were like watching a lot of those early channels in the early days, like what kind of channels were you into? If you want to shout out a couple of the earlier ones, because I know for me personally, what I got into the hobby with, it was like people like Leonhardt, it was people like PokeRev, honestly, when he was much, much smaller, PokeRev was one of the first channels I really fell in love with. Because I don't watch a lot of PokeRev anymore, but in the early days when getting back into it, man, PokeRev, it was really, really engaging. I felt like his pack breaks. So what were you into back then? What kind of content?
Yeah, so it predates a little bit of that. And I was watching some of like Rusty's earlier videos. I was watching a lot of Gem Mints videos. When Scott Pratt made his channel, I started watching some of his early stuff. Shout out to another person I had on my channel, MK Poke CC, watching some of his content he put out years ago. And then as quarantine came, like I definitely did like rediscover like the pack breaking and watching the Leonhardt. So why I was always very aware of Leonhardt, like didn't watch him pretty much at all. Same thing with
Hmm.
PokeRev. But when you get bored, like you just want to start consuming Pokemon content. And if you're going to consume a lot of Pokemon content, you're going to run out of the TCA Gamins and the Gem Mints and the Scott Pratts. You're going to run out of that really quick. So it is really only going to be like the Leonhardt or PokeRevs. And I still to this day watch those channels, especially PokeRev, like his Tuesday night vintage box breaks. A lot of, yeah, I'll probably skip like the base set, the jungle, the fossil ones. But when he goes into a little bit more obscure sets, if he's busting open a box of Holmes Phantoms or Legend Maker, or he hasn't done Deoxys, but I've watched his Skyridge video, stuff like that. These are not boxes I'm going to be opening anytime soon, if ever in my life, unless like some kind of miracle happens. So it is kind of easy to live vicariously through some of these box breaks because it's the only way you're going to experience the card. So I did consume a lot of that during the quarantine, but I also started consuming, like the Jake from Pokenomics, his channel being relatively new. And I think his came a little bit before the quarantine, but I definitely discovered it during the quarantine
That
and
was when I
watching some,
also discovered it too. Yeah.
yeah, and watching his and this is the sort of conversations I watch and I listen to. Like a video like this, if it wasn't me and you on this channel, say it was you with like your last live with Mason, I'll have my phone in my back pocket at work and have my earbuds in, just doing my normal day. But I'll be listening to this because a video like this, like the videos help. It's very interactive. It gives you that personal feel. But you don't need to watch the video if you don't want it. You could listen to it just as easy. Like that's why it works very good in like a podcast, like Joe Rogan-esque type situation.
Yeah, and I think that kind of stuff is really what people like to hear these days too. Even if you don't like commute to work or if you're just kind of working, like I work from home still. I have a home business. I ship Pokemon cards all over the world, so I have to pack things up. But I'm sitting here packing up orders every day, and so I listen to a lot of podcasts that I can't even watch because I'm doing things, but I listen. So I think a lot of the world really does like that sort of more audio based sort of long form type of content for sure. But yeah, I think that's interesting to hear the type of content that you were sort of consuming. I personally think it's interesting to hear that you sort of moved into the Leonhardts and into the PokeRevs as you started off sort of on those more, I think, smaller niche kind of collectors based channels. Like we're talking like Gem Mint Pokemon, TCA Gaming, which are incredibly important and incredibly informative to the hobby. But I tend to think of people as finding their way to those rather than finding their way to the bigger channels as from them. So I think that's an interesting story as far as like the type of content that you were kind of consuming too. Because I
So,
definitely I was the opposite. I kind of went into the hobby with those like, that more hype channel, pack breakers. And then I found my way more in consuming the other type of stuff, probably, I would say.
yeah,
The
so
other
I,
night on Whatnot, this to hear some crazy things that happened. I know you're not on Whatnot often, but shout out to the platform. I watched a EX Sandstorm box get broken, all for one single person. It was pretty degenerate. Literally, one person broke an
what?
entire box for themselves on the stream. It was
Wow,
pretty incredible to see, actually.
wow,
Yeah, it was.
that's pretty
I
crazy.
never
Um,
seen anything like it. Shout out to Cloud TCG for that one. Pretty
that's
wild.
pretty crazy that he did that. I mean, I personally like EX Sandstorm being, the second in the Nintendo set. So you got Ruby Sapphire, Sandstorm, then EX Dragon. Like I love I love those super early Nintendo sets because you got to keep in mind like EX Sandstorm, like we just came out of the Wizard of the Coast era. So Wizard of the Coast final sets are, Expedition, Aquapolis, Skyridge. So when you move into that super early Nintendo stuff, Ruby Sapphire, and then again, Sandstorm being number two, it's such a similar feel, but so drastically different. And then Sandstorm being one of those super underrated sets, especially if you like evolutions. Like, I'm not a super big fan of the Vaporeon artwork in that set, but like the Jolteon artwork, absolutely love. Like some of the EX cards, the one that really
The
sticks out to
Umbreon.
me is like the EX Aerodactyl. Like that card, that artwork pops like crazy. Like if you've never seen it, like I got it downstairs. It's the color of the Aerodactyl isn't like the normal like brownish or gray that you would normally expect them. It's like this greenish color to the Aerodactyl. It's just an awesome card. But sorry, I went off on a tangent on Sandstorm because I do like that set, and I
It's
think that's
worthy of
awesome.
going on a tangent. And even all the bigger hits that weren't pulled, there are tons of great Pikachu's. Like he had a reverse Pikachu as well.
Yep.
He
Yeah,
had some really
the
nice
Pikachu in the
reverses.
desert and the Pikachu's looking to the side. Yeah, that card in both regular and reverse is pretty awesome.
Yeah, there were great pulls. It was a really incredible thing to see, just because you usually see it broken down by like pack by pack, and so basically, I think the stream just one individual person ended up wanting the whole box, and so there's like how much for the box. They kind of negotiated it, and then he just bought it, and it's ripped the whole thing right there live for him. And I'd never seen like a Sandstorm box ripped like that. I came in like halfway into it, and I didn't even know what was happening. I thought he was just ripping a couple of packs, but he just kept going, and it was
Wow.
pretty
Yeah,
incredible. So
you never see that. But real quick to just go back to one earlier question you were asking, like how is weird that I moved to the Land Hearts or Pokerev. I think what probably the biggest catalyst was for me moving to them was while I was always very aware of modern, like understanding, and keep in mind, modern is subjective when you go back. So modern could be Sun and Moon or XY or Black and White. While I was always very aware of modern, it wasn't something that I like followed like extremely hard. But definitely in the quarantine, I started following modern a lot differently because the hobby as a whole and the demand and the interest had definitely changed towards modern. So as I was watching the hobby change and the market change, I was really just kind of playing catch up to a lot of people, or maybe not catch up, keep up. I think keep up would be the key word, like keeping up with modern, because that's what people were talking about. So in order to keep up with modern, like those channels, the Pokerevs or the Land Hearts that are doing the ultra modern box breaks, like those channels become a necessity. And trust me, trying to keep up with modern is one of the hardest things you can do in the hobby. That's why it was never something I did in the past. Like, while maybe I was aware of the hits and the chase cards, I wasn't like super engaged like I am now. So I think that just, I wanted to like talk. Maybe that's the reason why I went maybe in the more backwards direction.
well, it does make sense. And the modern boom, I think, was something that was super unprecedented in the hobby. Like you said, I had gotten in right around Hidden Fates. So right previous to the pandemic, the big Charizard sale for like $1,000. It was like, you could get the black label. I think was, what was it, 10 grand? A black label sold for 10 grand, was it? Or
Yeah, I think you're referring to like the 8 grand sale, and that was like the first or second Charizard that was late. Or yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't even actually follow those sales like super close because I never
right.
follow
No, and
those.
I didn't at the time, but I think that sale was what got me inadvertently back into Pokemon in a way,
Yeah,
because I was into Pokemon Go quite a bit, and I'd bought in a couple packs here and there because of the Pokemon Go boom since 2016, but never really big into it. But then when Hidden Fates came out, it was like my girlfriend and I were watching a lot of YouTube in the Pokemon sphere already, but not like TCG YouTube stuff. And then I think somehow we found a Leonhardt channel when Hidden Fates was coming out. We saw this like shiny Charizard or whatever. We're like, whoa, hold on a second. That's kind of cool. We like shiny Pokemon. So like I think Hidden Fates like kind of dragged me back in 2019, sort of the end of 2019. And so it was really, for me, to see the boom happen, it was like seeing something unfold right in front of my eyes that was like completely unlike anything that anyone had seen, because it wasn't something that was cyclical, because I think people were used to a certain cyclical nature of TCGs. I'm particularly used to Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering is more where my area of expertise was before I got heavily into Pokemon again. And that's a
Mhm.
much, much more stable, less boom, less bust, just more of a regular marketplace that was cyclical and sort of, predictable. The Pokemon market, I think we can both agree what happened these last couple of years with it was not predictable by anyone. It went so drastically, like in the beginning of the pandemic, where people were like, oh no, sell everything, the world's ending, these collectibles are going to be worth nothing because we all need to live, we need food and shelter and medicine. It went from like on the flip of a hat from that to this like stonk hype dog, like crypto rocket ship emojis in overnight, it felt like. And it
Yeah.
was just really interesting. So every day waking up when that was going on, it just felt like such a roller coaster ride being involved with this hobby. And so I had gotten involved with it personally in around 2019, re-involved with it. And I started my business right in the beginning of 2020 in that hype. So definitely interesting to ride it through. And I think you started your YouTube right around then too, right? It was sort of in the beginning of 2020, right? Or is that
Nope. So it's end of 2020. It was
end
November
of 20? That's
2020.
right.
Yeah.
November, I think it was, right? Is what
Yep.
you had said before.
Yeah. And like I said, it just came out of the quarantine, and it came out of me, you know, starting to absorb YouTube content, something that I hadn't really done at a, huge level in the past, and listening to people and just saying, you know what, I want to make a video. I want to like talk Pokemon, because it's one of those things that Pokemon forever was always something that I wouldn't say you did it in the shadows, but it was something you did more like as a hobby, and something that was just, you did it because you wanted to do it. And sure, that's the thing about Pokemon, was there was always money to be made if you really want to grind. It's just the dollar amounts were maybe a little bit less, and stuff like that. And when we talk about modern today, when I used to look at modern at the time, the reason I didn't like modern then, and modern could be, some, celestial storm, or go back further to Fates Collide, or go back even further to Platinum, right? So, or even go back further to that and talk about, Black and White base, or Next Destiny.
Let's not talk about black and white. That's the dark
Yeah.
era.
But,
If you
you
if you
go,
said you got back into it in black and white, I might say that there's a reason why you didn't look at modern differently, or why you look at it differently back then, right?
well, the way I used to look at modern was, I always looked at modern as being super expensive. And what I mean by that is being super expensive is, if I want to go out and buy a pack for $2.99 or $3.99, to me, that was a very expensive thing to open up, because there was there was some expected value, but it wasn't a lot. And I would always say, if I'm going to spend money on Pokemon, like, why wouldn't I go after all this vintage stuff, which I actually care about a lot more? So even though, sure, like a Plasma Storm or Plasma Blast or a Plasma Freeze pack today might be extremely expensive in comparison to everything else. Like at the time, it's like, I don't really want to open this. Like, yeah, maybe like Plasma Storm had, the 3 secret rares in it, but then it's like, well, what did the other plasma sets have? It's like, well, it had like the SH like shining secret rares that were boring, that I didn't even like in Pokemon.
Halucha. It was like they had like a Halucha and like a Dust
Exactly.
Noir. It was like,
Exactly. So it's not even cards I wanted. Like, even if I were to pull the hit, I'd be like, oh, this is not a fun card. So it's just, and I guess that was how my mindset was just for a while. And it was fun to acquire and, pick up a booster box here or there and put it in your collection just to have it. But it wasn't something I was going heavy in. Where then, as the market changed in 2020, and then people just loved modern, and I'm not going to lie, like, I am still affected by the rest of the hobby. As everybody else's excitement ramps up, my excitement's going to ramp up too. And that's why when I look at, well, what's the most fun I've ever had in this hobby? The most fun I've ever had in this hobby was that 2020, 2021, and today, that 2022 timeline. And it's because I was able to be at home and really, really start to enjoy this, but not just by myself anymore. being more engaged with the community, with people out there who were also super excited about Pokemon. The landscape of this hobby just changed so drastically, and it changed for the positive in a lot of ways, but then it changed in the negative too. But it was nice to find that sweet spot for myself.
Now, I think what you're referring to in the negative is a lot of that like crazy price hiking we saw and like the
Yeah.
products and scalping and like people kind of getting burned by overpaying for things and then things retracing really because of reprint hammers or unexpected like waves that happen or, you know, irresponsible business decisions and then businesses dumping product on the market and then affecting everyone else sort of. These are all things that and even market manipulation and show bidding and things can sort of manipulate the market like that.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with those all being a negative thing, but I would also agree with you in the fact of what you said that I think that it's something that I don't think about a lot is that the landscape really did change because I wasn't involved as much with the hobby before quarantine. Like you said, you were involved with it a little bit more in depth with like the E4, more of the traditional old school ways of collecting sort of to yourself, but still being involved. It just changed so drastically when we all kind of got locked inside. We all wanted to reach out and collect with each other. And so I think with also the advent of the ability for technology to sort of more, I guess, facilitate that, it probably helped that happen. I don't think there's a way it could ever change because now you're right. I don't think it's, even though I think we love these cards, like I have tons of cardboard behind me and I love it all. Like I'm not even, I don't consider myself a materialistic person, but I still love these cards. You know, I like them for a certain aspect, but it's not because of the cardboard or the shininess. It's because of like the nostalgia, the connections, the fun that we have with it. Because I agree with you. Well, I got in the hobby when I was like 8 years old and I had tons of fun. I played tournaments and did all the things that, you know, a kid did with the hobby that you look back on, we look back on fondly and try to recreate with our nostalgia and our buying practices. I think the most fun I've had in the hobby has also been just engaging with the overall community. And I think that's one of the strong points of a lot of these like streaming platforms we're seeing develop are it's not necessarily like the market per se, but it's the communities that develop within those markets. Like just for example, in my streams and in streams that I go into a lot, I see a lot of the same names and a lot of the same people interacting. It's very much so a close-knit community and it feels very much so like a very welcoming community. I think you said this in a stream just earlier last night, even maybe when you were with Alex from Nostalgianomics. I think you said it felt like Pokemon was a party and everyone was invited. And that's sort of how Pokemon always felt like. And I really liked when you said that. I thought, I don't know if that was the exact wording, but I thought it was really elegant because I think it's true. Pokemon is, I feel like it is at its core, it's very inviting. And that's what the community does feel like. Now, there are aspects of the community that I think are very toxic and uninviting. And those aspects are all, you know, you look at, you know, deep in forums and message boards and Facebook comments and things. And, you know, we're talking Verbank, we're talking Pokemon Marketplace, you know.
Drama is not new to this hobby. I'll put it that way. Drama is, and I've said this in other videos, drama is as Pokemon as it gets in a way too. So there's always that. But you know, kind of talking about what I was mentioning about why like I got so excited with 2020, 21, 22 is because of, you know, really interacting with the community. But when I look back at when I got into Pokemon in 99, and what was one of the reasons I enjoyed Pokemon back then was, yes, I had Blue growing up for Game Boy and I had the cards, but going to
Blue Gang.
Yeah.
I was also a Blue.
So going to class and talking about Pokemon with your friends or going over your friend, I was like a really bad sleeper when I was a kid. I could never wake up on Saturday morning to watch Pokemon on WB at like 8 a.m. But I had one friend who would record it on VHS. And like that day at 1 p.m., I would go over his house and make him put that VHS in for that show that he watched in the morning because he recorded. But like that was it, right? It was maybe then I wouldn't consider it the Pokemon community. I think that is a name we as of adults have given to this hobby. But back then, I guess in a way, I was still part of the Pokemon community. And I have my original badge book downstairs that I had from Toys R Us. Like I used to play the games Saturday mornings with my mom. And I just said I couldn't wake up to watch the show, but there you go. So like I had that experience. So you got your Pokédex. See, you're all over the place. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But Oh wow, is that an e-reader? Yeah. Awesome. But
This is my most prized possession, probably.
two masters, music hits TV. I've never seen that one. Look, with a Sears tag
The
on it.
Pokey Rap music video is included on this CD, buddy.
Oh,
It's still sealed with the Sears sticker and everything. You
you
have to
guys
pry
better have
this from
that
my
graded
cold,
by
dead
whoever's grading
hands.
CDs. But yeah, so like even back then, that was one of the reasons I loved this hobby, was that I guess interaction, which maybe I wasn't like super aware of it living in the moment. But now being an adult and looking back on that and being able to now kind of look at my childhood from the outside looking into what it was. And it was, yeah, it was a lot of that, just going to school and trading Charmanders and Squirtles and your Tangulas and hoping somebody would make a dumb trade and you could get something you're looking for. Or maybe you were the one making the dumb trade because it was a card you really wanted, but it was
What's
something
the
you're passionate.
best and the worst trade you've ever made? That reminds me, because I've said on my channel many times mine, but I want to hear what your most memorable
So,
trade you ever made. Like, what's the worst you ever ripped a kid off? I gotta know.
so yeah. Oh, I have like a big trade that I did recently, but I don't want to talk about it. Like it's a
Okay.
big time. It was a big adult trade I made. I got rid
Okay,
of
well, let's talk more. Do you remember any of your? Because like I feel like I've said this as a joke a few times, but like if you have a
so
sibling, or if you have a cousin, and if you haven't ripped your cousin off for Pokemon cards when you were like 8 or 9 years old by like trading him like a regular rare for like a hollow, or like a
yeah,
common for
so
a hollow, then I don't
I
know what you're
remember.
doing. You're not living.
No, I remember being like, it's not, yeah, I don't remember like a lot of the Pokemon trades. I can remember some like sports card trades that I did as a kid that were probably like really dumb at the time. I remember being like big Chicago Bulls fan because
Okay.
we grew up in the
Jordan.
90s and you only knew who Michael Jordan
Yeah,
was.
of course,
But
Michael Jordan. Yeah.
I remember thinking like Dennis Rodman was, again, Dennis Rodman today being a psychopath, but Dennis Rodman back then just being like this guy with crazy hair and just like this force to be reckoned with on the court, and trading my friend for like all their Dennis Rodman cards, from like some of them were Bulls, but some were Piston cards. And I remember trading away like some of my baseball cards, which were probably like some of the best cards that I had. And probably looking back on those trades are pretty dumb, but
I'm glad
I
to
don't
hear you're a
know.
baseball collector. I also collected some baseball cards before I got into Pokemon, probably. So, what got you into Pokemon then? Were you already a collector that like? I guess so. I
So
was 8 years old when Pokemon came out to the U.S., and I was already collecting things like sports cards. But what got you into Pokemon? Like, what was your first entrance to the hobby? What do you remember?
so I was in fifth grade and I remember going over, this is crazy I asked this, but I remember going over one of my friend's house, and he had like a house, and they had like a back fence, but the back fence had like a little kind of break in it. And then the house behind him was another kid, and his mom like sold Pokemon cards. I don't know if she sold Pokemon cards at like flea markets or swap meets, or I don't know where she sold them, but I just know he had a booster box there. And everybody was like, "Oh, you need to like Pokemon." And I'm like, "Well, I don't, I have the games, but I don't know what like cards are. I don't know what the trading card game is." He's like, "Oh yeah, this." And I remember my friends like having to tell me what Pokemon cards were and why I should want it. And I remember, I don't know, I must have had like $5 or $6 in my pocket because I bought a pack from this kid's mom, and she probably overcharged me for however much that pack was. Who knows? Maybe I had $10 and they talked me into, I have no clue like the price. But
Take
I
my money.
remember not pulling anything good. I must have pulled the trainer. I did not pull a hollow, but I remember pulling an Arcanine in that pack. And if you remember, Arcanine had like 100 HP and 80 attack, and having no clue how to play the game or anything, just seeing like this high HP and this high attack. Like everybody was like, "Oh my God, that's one of the best cards you could pull," and stuff like that, which
It
knowing
was a
what I
big
know
deal
now.
back then. Arcanine was so cool. He was a legendary He was the legendary Pokemon. That's what his Pokédex entry is.
Oh, was it?
It
Okay.
is. It
So
is still. It's he is the legendary Pokemon. That's what his like Pokédex entry is.
so I can remember stuff like that. And then I guess from after that, like talking to my mom, being like, "Can you buy me Pokemon cards?" And my mom being like, "What's a Pokemon card?" And then just going down that. And then next thing you know, like it's like any hype fad. And I was in that perfect age group. So my mom had always raised me to be a collector in a sense, because my mom was always into collecting like currencies and coins and stuff like that. So I was already sort of familiar with like the grading scales of stuff, like, or maybe not grading scales, but like condition rarity of stuff, I should say. So like understanding like keep things nice. And then sports cards, like coming out of that as a kid, I collected Marvel cards in like 93, 94. The big Marvel set I collected was series 4 cards, the one that makes like the big sheet. You could put them together and make big pictures. And with sports cards, I understood it. There was like a part of me that knew to take decent care of my cards. And I didn't really know what I had until I got older and I looked back at my collection and was like, oh, I got in relatively early because a lot of my cards, they were not first edition, but a lot of them were shadowless, like a large majority of them, which means I must have just been in pretty early on some of those early print runs. But
Mhm.
yeah. What about you?
Yeah, that was about so same story about where I the timing I got in, because I didn't have a lot of first edition cards in my original collection. I had a couple here and there which I remember having, but I was more shadowless that I found like in my real old stuff that I still had. And I did have a lot of unlimited. So for me, I remember first being introduced to it by the anime and the game, like you said, and then we had a little local market. It's like a Pacific Island market where it had like, you know, a bunch of exotic things to me as like a 8-year old or whatever. And we would go down like once a week, and with my allowance, my mom would take me and my cousin down, and they would have this little section of the store where they have like the Beanie Babies, and they'd have like the, you know, the little cards and candies and, you know, cutesy kawaii kind of stuff. And my cousin, who's 2 years younger than me, she'd always be into getting kind of stuff, candies and stuff. And one day we went over there and we were looking at Beanie Babies because that was a big thing. They had Pogs, I think, too. And we saw these Pokemon cards, but they were like, I think that they only had like base set at the time. And so it was really early on. So we bought some, and I still remember my cousin pulling the Charizard, and I pulled like Pikachu and like a Nidoking or something, or like something random, just not the Charizard. But I remember specifically trading, and this is why I asked you about yours. I remember trading my cousin right after we got it, Pikachu for a Charizard, and because she didn't care, she liked Pikachu, and I liked Charizard, and she didn't care about the Charizard, and I was like, oh my gosh, Charizard, as a, you know, 8-year-old boy,
Yeah.
and so that was like, to this day, we joke about it at the dinner table or whatever around Thanksgiving. Sometimes if we ever talk about Pokemon, she barely even remembers it, but I still remember that. It's just so funny. But yeah,
Do you
around
have
that
that
time,
Charizard?
that Charizard trade specifically, yeah. And I that was the Charizard that to this day, now years back when I Pokemon Go craze came out, and I sort of, the cards sort of gained a little more value than they had in years. Someone had told me to go look for my old Pokemon cards again, and I had found that Charizard as well as a few of my other cards, and I sold them all kind of in a lot. And that's the one card that I talk about as a big regret, and that's a big story on my channel. I always tell is like, big regret, don't sell your childhood cards. I mean, I at the
Yeah.
time didn't think I cared about them. They sat in my closet for however X amount of years, and I didn't care about them. So I figured, why would I start caring about them then? But man, was I wrong. So, you
Yeah.
know, I even reached out to the person a year or two later after the fact, just during last year, during the pandemic. Went on a limb, reached out to the person on like eBay that I'd sold it to, and tried to say, hey man, just as a thought, if you'd sell it back at market price now, I'll pay the market price for that Charizard if you still have it. Told him a little sob story, how was my childhood Charizard. He said, sorry about that, buddy. I sold that long time ago. That's had probably 2, 3 new owners since then, and I hope you can
Yeah.
find it. And went along my day. But
Yeah. So the my chase card as a kid growing up, and I've told this story now on my channel a bunch of times, but my favorite character in the Pokemon game and my favorite card is Raichu. So my favorite card was base set Raichu, all the way back from the TV show of Pikachu fighting Lieutenant Surge and couldn't beat his Raichu, and the Pikachu had to go into the dam and put the things on his cheeks and like power up and all that stuff. But growing up, I was very lucky. I pulled the big three. I pulled Venusaur, Blastoise, Charizard, but I never pulled that Raichu. And I just wanted it, never pulled it. And I remember wanting a Zap deck so bad. Wanted a Zap deck so I could get the Raichu. Well, everyone out there now knows that the Zap deck was Mewtwo. It was not Raichu. So I like that was even an option. But I even remember wanting that Zap deck. And then I remember one of my other friends who it wasn't the same kid whose house I was over. He actually like kind of lived up the street a little bit, but being at his house and him going through his binder and him having a Raichu. And I wanted to trade him everything that I owned just for that Raichu. And when you guys are kids, sometimes like if you see one of your friends really want something super bad, like something, yeah, something inside them changes where he didn't want to trade it. And I want to say, and I can't like say with 100% because this was a long time ago, but I think I offered him my Charizard for that Raichu. And he told me no. Like that's how bad I wanted that card, because for me, that Raichu was the pinnacle of this hobby. And I never got it. And then when I did re-enter the hobby, that was the first card I bought. And when I tell you I bought it, I bought a bunch of them. And I probably created a market buyout on that one card for a very small window of time. I have more Raichus right now than any person in a million years should have.
How many base set Raichus do you have, PK? How many? Do you have a number?
No.
Is there an approximate you're comfortable giving?
100-ish.
And are we talking raw or are we talking slabbed Raichus?
Both. I have 50 graded just alone.
50, so, 50?
50 just graded.
And didn't you tell me in another stream, maybe in our live, that you were still trying to complete your 1 through 10?
Yeah.
Okay, say no more, my friend. And that right now, guys, is why some low certs on PSA will go for much higher than they deserve, because there are crazy people out there in the world. One of those crazy people is on my podcast right now. I'm not gonna say
I could go downstairs and like pick up one of the lower grade boxes, and you would just feel I don't want to like walk away.
Oh, please go get that Raichu box just to show people who are listening. I'll regale our listeners here who are listening. If you haven't already, please go like and subscribe to the channel here, and then go to Pokeknowledge's channel. Give him a subscription. This guy gives the greatest information and makes some of the funniest meme videos, but also really, really great lives. We'll probably be doing a market chat, since this is sort of more focused, even though we are talking about the market, more on collecting. We'll probably be doing a live market chat with the YouTube chat and just kind of interacting more with people here in the near future. But yeah, if you guys haven't already, please like and subscribe while PK is getting his big box of Raichus. I was going to title this video something pretty funny. Now this is going to be perfect. This is going to be the perfect for the thumbnail.
This is just one of the boxes, and there's another like matching box downstairs.
Oh. Gosh. So I was going to title this video as a joke. You have how many base set Raichus? And now I'm definitely titling it that.
Hold on.
That's an incredible. So have you seen my Eevee binder?
This is just one of the boxes.
Yeah. Have you seen my Eevee binder?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
I'm like you with the Raichu, but with this Eevee, except I just hate graded cards. So I just only go raw.
Like this is one of them. Can you see the grade?
Dude, it's good. It's the dreaded PSA 2.
Yeah,
I think that's my least favorite grade of all.
It's a shadowless 2.
Yeah.
But like, so
question: do you have the web series one? Do you have the Japanese web series non-holo Raichu?
No, I only collect base set Raichu.
Well, it's the base set art.
Yep, but only English, because this
was okay, fair. So I was thinking about you. I almost bought one in an auction. It was in a lot of other cards, specifically because I was thinking about you. I was like, I wonder if PK even knows if this one existed, because I didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
But really cool, the web series. I feel like it's cool because you get to see those interesting like early series Wizards of the Coast arts with more of the E series border on it. But then they also have like the new back Japanese backs. So I feel like they're such odd cards. Do you like errors and like misprints and weird niche things? Or are you more of like an English set collector sort of thing? Or what kind of things do you collect in the Pokemon hobby? That leads us to a good question in this interview.
So real quick, if you ever look at my PWCC vault, you would see a crazy amount of Raichus as well. But to answer your question, like misprints, I don't really go after like anything that are like, like I don't go after the like. It depends what you consider a misprint. Do you consider like jungle, no symbols, and error? Do you look
Yeah.
at like yeah?
Classic
So
misprint. Yeah. So red cheeks Pikachu, jungle no
yeah, yeah.
symbol.
So yeah, Shadowless Red Cheeks Pikachu, first edition Pikachu's. Yeah, I have some of those. I don't have like the Hitmonlee with the guitar, cigar stamp. Like I don't have any of those. You know, like sure you have like the simple ones that everyone have, like the Diglets with the fight and energy. You know, moved a
Vulpixes,
little
the
bit,
Caterpies, the
or
Bulbasaurs. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the $30,000 length Bulbasaur. Like everyone
But
has
but
some
what
of
about
those.
like a stage error Blastoise? Are you the type of collector that likes that would like say you had the
Or
opportunity
the
to
yeah,
pay
so
up
like
for
the stage era Blastoise or like the red dot Blastoise, I guess
yeah.
you could kind of like swap those two out.
Oh,
Um,
don't say that. I sold a red dot Blastoise with that Charizard that I was talking about in that lot. It was with an error red dot Blastoise for just a regular Blastoise. So don't say
yeah,
that about the red dot. We have to pretend like that one's not desirable for now,
yeah.
just for my
So like
pride.
a card like that, I purposely do not collect cards like that. So if I did have a card like that, that's one of those cards that is like one of the very first to sell. But
Yeah.
I'm very aware of what those cards are most of the time. So they will be sold as a red dot or a no stage Blastoise, stuff like that. But it's not something I actively go after. But like uh something I now I'm gonna mention it twice in one video, but like the reverse hollow TV reporter from EX Dragon. Like a card like that is definitely not an error card by any sense of the mean, but it's an error in this sort of way where the EX Dragon, the first couple print runs, for whatever reason, that card didn't have a reverse hollow form. It wasn't until like some of the last print runs of that set where they actually made that card in reverse hollow. Most of those cards hit Europe. They didn't even hit North America. So they became even rarer for people like us that live in North America. So there was like this huge chase aspect to it. Most people don't even know what that card is. So those are the kind of things which aren't like inherent errors. Or I go after like things with like a pretty high scarcity to it. But no, I'm not like a big error collector in general.
Now, with a card like that TV reporter, is that a card you're actively searching for? Is that a card you're perfectly happy? I know you're a set collector, so I know
I
you
have
need
that.
it for your set.
I have that card.
Oh, you
I
already
don't
have
need
it.
it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one
So
of considered by many to be one of the rarest cards in the world.
yeah. Well, it's in PSA, it's got it, the pop keeps increasing. But do you see the how miscut this Raichu is? You see that bottom?
Yeah, that's beauty. That's a beaut for a miscut
Yeah.
collector. That was gonna be one of
Yeah.
my questions for you is if you had any miscut. Did it get the MC? Did it get the miscut?
It didn't get the OC, it just got the good two.
So that is well, okay. So that makes sense because it was probably had some damage to it. They PSA with their grading standards, I've found doesn't like giving cards that have any sort of flaws to them. Those like those OC denominations, they really want a mint card to give it an OC. And I know this because I sent in a Shadowless Zapdos, and it was incredibly off center to the point where there's a print dot. But in one single corner, besides everything, it's a mint condition card, but in one corner has a significant little white ding. We won't call it like a dot because it's more of a ding than a dot. And they marked it a 6. And it's incredibly, it's a mint, beautiful card, but 6 because no off center, no nothing, even though it's incredible. So PSA has incredibly interesting standards, I would say, for where they draw the line on what they want to put on the label. Like sometimes they'll tell you that they're going to put a pedigree on the label for a special opening that you go across the country to to go, and then you ask them 1,000 times, they tell you no, they're not going to put it on there, and then you go fly across, you fly home with your hollow that you pulled ungraded raw, and then you hear about a pedigree putting it. So who knows what PSA is doing, really. Sorry,
Yeah.
hashtag never going to get sponsored by PSA. Hashtag never going to get sponsored by CGC.
No, I'm still got that in the back of my mind. CGC one day will be like, you know what? Let's sponsor this guy's videos. That will shut him up.
It'll be like the reverse. They're like, you know what? We're not going to sponsor people who show for us. We're going to sponsor people who are real for us. So then people will see that and respect us.
Oh yeah.
But man, we can't get into the CGC thing because I think both you and I can sit here. Like we get us together ranting about CGC and PSA. We're down. I don't think our viewers are in for a 6-hour video today. So
I mean, I got a bunch of CGC cards. Look at all these.
Oh, I love buying CGC cards. They're
These
fantastic.
these are all CGC.
How many of those 8.5s do you think are deserved? So anyone who's listening, he just flashed up a bunch of random CGCs up there.
Did you say 8.5 here? There's four of them for you. That's like the stereotypical CGC.
So between those 8.5s, I bet you have a PSA 6 through a PSA 10 in your hands. It could go any of those directions without even looking at them. And that just goes to show for like what the level of what 8.5 means to CGC. I feel like that's what happens when they get their new graders in. And they're just like, all right, if you're unsure of something, just slap an 8.5 on it, all right? Just slap with the old 8.5.
So I got this like in this hand is an 8.5 versus this Beckett 9. And if you look right down there for this Beckett card, it's going to be real hard to get in and focus. But right down there, there's a ton of whitening and chipping. It's hard to see.
And it's a 9 Beckett. Yeah,
it's a 9, but like it's just it is what it is. But like.
Yeah. So are you of the certain thought that there are eras of grading certs that hold stronger or weaker values, or do you think that it's all of it doesn't matter? It's like, it's all random. It just depends on the person. They probably had the same guy working there for 20 years anyway. So if you got him on 1999 or if you got him on 2009, it doesn't matter. What are your thoughts on that type of the certification theory? Shout out to Dan. Shout out to Z&G Emporium. We always joke about this in the Discord. I think that the joke is 0 to 1 certs are incredibly rare, or 0 to 2 certs are incredibly rare. 3 certs are almost non-existent. 4 certs are S tier. 5 certs are A tier, and 6 tiers are just a complete random crapshoot. It's usually or soft. So
yeah. So I do think that there's a little weight to that. I do think that some of the older cards are maybe the grading was a little bit more lax, but at the same time, you could have old cards too that are absolutely gem mint, and that those cards would still grade a PSA 10 today. Because you got to keep in mind, like some of the really early WotC cards, especially like, first edition base, there's really only like 2 people sending in some of those super early cards. And you got to keep in mind, it was like Gary King Pokemon, Birdman, like those were 2 of the guys that were sending in most of those cards. They were buying booster boxes, cracking them open, and sending the hits to PSA. So the same as today, as if somebody were to crack a booster box, sleeve the hit, send it to PSA, hope to get a 9 or 10, and then that would make sense to somebody. If
hold
somebody
on a second, though, PK. I love King Pokemon. Gary, if you watch this video, you're a freaking goat and you prop this hobby up. And I love what you've done. But I've seen you open packs before live. And I've seen how Gary handles booster packs at times. And Gary, I don't know. I'm specifically talking about one stream, my friend. I'm not trying to throw you into. I love you, just so you know. But the stream where you were with, I think it was Aoki, opening cards. It was a base set. It may have been a bad day, but it looked a little rough. So I've seen Gary handle cards that could have possibly, if you send it in. So, if there's only 2 people sending those early certs, then maybe there's a little warranted. Just so we know, Gary, I do love you. I'm just joking with you, but I will say, I've seen some videos.
Yeah, but you think about some of his he has some weak 10s, but some of his real strong 10s, like he had sent a couple of those to Beckett trying to get the pristine. None of them ended up pushing through. But then, yes, he ended up selling the one to Logan Paul. And, that's a whole tinfoil hat theory on whether or not Logan Paul actually cracked that card and sent it raw to Beckett and tried to get the pristine 10, or did he send it as is in the slab and then they, reviewed that card in the slab? Yeah.
Tinfoil hat time here. Yeah.
With that said, like keep that in mind that Gary did have some super nice Charizards, and then
absolutely.
Then like Gary does have so there's only 3 first edition pristine Beckett Charizards, and they're gold labels, they're not black labels. But Gary does own 2 of those, and Scott Pratt has come on the record. Like I've never personally held that card and never examined it, with like super fine details, but Scott Pratt has done it, and he's talked about one of Gary's pristine Charizards as literally being the cleanest copy of any Charizard that Scott has ever seen in his life is the one that Gary owns. So
that's a cool story. I've actually never heard that specific story about like Scott and Gary interacting or whatever. I know
yeah.
that he's been in the hobby for so long. They've had to have many, many interactions, specifically with that particular card, probably too.
Oh yeah, there's some videos where they're like, I want to say it's like Scott sitting in Gary's living room and they're just talking about Pokemon. So
Oh, that's cool. That's really neat. Yeah. And I mean, Gary and Scott, both of them are such like pillars of this hobby that have been around for so long that like there's just so much good information that's been put out by them that mad respect go out to them. So I just want to say again, I was trolling you a little bit there, Gary, if you end up seeing this, mad respect. But yeah, I do think that there's some weight to that PSA sort of early cert sort of theory as well. I'm not superstitious. I don't think that all of them are like that. And I do think you need to sort of be specific about the card. But with that in mind, I mean, I've had variants in all of the certs, and so I deal in a lot of different PSA, and while I do see threes as being the rarest, they're just almost non-existent. I've seen variants in pretty much all of the rest. Yeah, and I personally I think one of these days we'll see PSA get their act together. I would like to believe that because I think they are such an important part to the hobby. Because even though I personally don't like graded cards or I don't interact with graded cards like a lot of the rest of the hobby has been lately, and like, you know, the rest of the investing part of the hobby does, I do see a place for them. And I think they're very important in the hobby. I don't like and I don't agree with a lot of what I've seen in the last couple of years, specifically not just in the hobby with like the scalping and things like that, but I don't think enough shade has been thrown on both by the Pokemon company and the grading companies that have been out there. Okay, well, maybe that's not true. You and I both know that a lot of shade's been thrown at PSA, but I think it's a lot of it's warranted, to be honest, because I think that the growth the hobby experienced was a lot of it was warranted to that company PSA. And that being said, even though they didn't ask for that, they benefited from it. So they could have possibly done more for like transparency, for like, I don't know, a lot of the fraud that was going on, a lot of the stuff that just felt a little bit somewhat preventable if like a really like a parent company stepped in and took some responsibility. And it's like they didn't want to take responsibility because it's like no one was making them. Whereas I think the hobby should have maybe made them take more responsibility for things. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, you can get into super semantics. Like, you know, one of the big things is a lot of people cracked a lot of cards, resubmitted it to PSA. A perfect example being, you know, Charizard. We talked about it just a little bit ago. Charizard First Edition.
Or what about that
Trust me.
PSA Illustrator that just got,
Well,
I mean,
yeah, that's a perfect example. You know, like Rattle made a great video about that. But think about PSA 9 Charizard First Edition. If you look at the pop report, you're going to say there's a lot of PSA 9 first editions that exist. Well, guess what? A lot of those nines were cracked and they were sent to PSA and tried to get tens and they got nines back and they cracked them again and resubmitted them and cracked them again. And, you know,
you're telling me that you think that every person who did that didn't take the label and then mail it back to PSA and say, hey, sorry, I actually cracked it out. Here you go. You should probably destroy. I think that people are far more responsible than that, PK.
yeah.
Wow, that's real shade you're throwing at our Pokemon community.
Tell that to the Ziploc bag full of labels that I have downstairs. You know,
I've got a few labels myself up here too. I could probably just within reach grab, I'm sure.
yeah. But no, I mean, yeah, sure. Right now, I think there's 121 PSA 10 first edition Charizards right now. But out of that 121, like, yeah, sure. Did every single 9 that was ever cracked eventually get a PSA 10? No. A lot of those 9s probably never made it to a 10. And some of them maybe made it to an 8. And then they had to resubmit that 8 and get a 9 back again. And then they stopped submitting it. Like, there's probably a lot of that happened. But out of that 121 10s, a lot of those were multiple submissions. So can you say, well, PSA needs to somehow be able to be more aware of this and look at hollow patterns of cards and do all the stuff that, like, say you and I would do when we would like really look at a card in depth, like compare it, like, oh, this hollow pattern is exactly the same as this cert. They're not going to do that. The level of effort required would just be way too high. Now, some of this really high end stuff, maybe some like Trophy Pikas or Illustrator Pikachu is a good example. Like some of the stuff like that, like, can you make the argument today? Yes, because there's all the upcharges. But back then, Rattle talked about it in his video. that Illustrator Pikachu that kept getting submitted until that guy got a 10, he just kept submitting it at the $5 bulk tier. This is going back to 2013 when he graded that a 10. It's just such a different time where we live in today than when we did in 2013. And most people in this hobby, or a large majority of the people in this hobby, couldn't even comprehend in their head that turnaround times at PSA for bulk could be 3 weeks. And you could submit that card 4, 5, 6, 7 times in 1 year, So
that I think is one of what more of I was referring to, I think, than more so than like the population report thing, because I think there could be an argument that could be said they could do a little more for that, but I don't think I'm going to hold them so accountable for that, because that is more so the irresponsibility of their, even though we were sort of trolling and I was joking when I said you didn't send your labels in, people should send their labels in if they actually care about that, right? So to a certain extent, we can't hold PSA accountable for that. I meant more so I kind of meant more so about like the long turnaround times, the lack of transparency for that, and then just taking people's money and running with it, basically, and like up charges. Suddenly, when up charges weren't ever a thing before, suddenly charging up charges because of new ownership or whatever it was, maybe, and then changing of and then also never really authenticating or offering an authentication service for sealed product, which has never really been something that's been demanded of them. I think I've been one of the only people to ever really been screaming against screaming, it feels like, against a brick wall at times for booster box or sealed sort of type of product authentication like they do for their sealed pack authentication, but it's just nothing they would ever realistically do, because why would they, right? There's too little reward for the level of risk I believe that they would take by doing that. But even if it was something like, meaning like they would take the box, they would verify the contents, open it up, and then reseal it, put their nice little PSA box on it, and say, these are real packs. We just cracked it to check to make sure, and it's verified like Rusty does. I think that's a level of service that is not only would be welcomed in the hobby, but it's needed. And as the company who has that responsibility or has that much power and is benefiting and it's sort of profiting so much on that, I feel like it's almost PSA's responsibility, even though they're a private business and their only real responsibility as business is make a profit for their owners and shareholders. I do feel like there's a level of responsibility that the collectors should put on them, that should say, hey, someone needs to do this. You guys really need to be the ones to step up and do it. And like, hey, let's make it happen. But I think aside from that, I do think now that we're cooling off, we're seeing the sub submissions, $50 coming back in less than a month for a lot of people. We're probably getting very close to the $50 tier being standard again without these lotteries, and then that next tier being the next lottery tier that opens up, and then kind of moving down the ladder as that goes. And we're getting back to that, I think, $10, $20 rate. Now, the real question is, now that when we get back to that $10 rate, are they going to, and this probably does depend, do you think there'll ever be the demand that we saw like in 2020, that real fervor and demand to like submit, almost to the point because you expect to break PSA? It's like people almost submitted cards to the point where they would keep doing it until it broke, and then they're like, okay, they close down again, we can relax. But then when they open up again, it's like the fervors. Or do you think it's sort of going to be a slow trickle again? Because I think that's what a lot of people in the hobby right now who stuck around, who didn't really sell out and move on to the next big hype thing, who actually are Pokemon fans, a lot of people, especially watching this channel, they probably want to know, like, what do we think like the future can hold for like PSA and the future of the hobby? So what do you think about the future of the hobby, I guess?
Yeah. So real quick, I do want to touch a little bit on what you talked about with, what would really take for PSA to authenticate booster boxes. I just want to just talk about that real quick. I've talked about this on my channel. Everything you just mentioned, PSA would have to crack the box, check the packs, put, tamper-proof seals on it, put it in like a box and put tamper-proof box on the box and all this stuff. That is how they would have to do it. And I think you said that you thought that the hobby as a whole would embrace that. I would say that they wouldn't. And the reason why is, if here's a booster box of, like this is X-Men Series 2, but this little plastic wrap, this half-cent plastic wrap, the market and the hobby is so conditioned to appreciate this little seal on this that we are so far away from, as a hobby, being able to justify that saran wrap being gone. That I just don't think the hobby will ever get there. There's just too many people out there. But to go into your next question, where you were asking, where do I see like PSA grading and all this and people that have been waiting? I think in order to understand where the future is going, all you got to do is look at the past. Look at how were PSA cards treated by the hobby as a whole. And the way they were treated was tens had a premium. You're probably going to make money on tens, depending on the card. If you got a 9, you might make a couple dollars or get pretty close to breaking even on your grading fee. And then anything sub 9, unless it was like, a super rare, super chase card. If anything below a 9, you're probably going to lose money on. So I think the future of the hobby is just going to go right back to the past. And I think the examples are already there. And there's already a track record of that being the way PSA grading for the most part will be handled. Now, for a card like this, which is a CGC 5, which has value to probably one person in the world, that's me, because
that was what I wanted to ask you about, the mid-grade slabs now, because we're talking those high-grade slabs, right?
This card might as well be worthless. This card, for unlimited, I mean, this card has no value to it. Like, now, I'll give you an example of.
So you bump that grade up a 3 or 4 up to like an 8, 5, or 9. Then
we're here now. Bump that up to an 8 first edition. You only go 3 grades up, but now this card is worth money. But this card really is only worth money when I submit it to PSA, send it to their cross grading service, put a minimum grade of an 8, get an 8 back, and then I will now take a Beckett 8 and create $300 worth of value in this one card by changing slabs. Like, this hobby as a whole, when it comes to grading, is such an irrational market. It's really just going to come down to navigating this market, like understanding that I would never sell this card in a Beckett slab. I will own this card in a Beckett slab, sure, but I will never sell this card in a Beckett slab because that's stupid. And it's the same thing with this 9. If I were to be in the market to be selling this card, I would be fire selling this card right now, doing whatever I can, because I'll tell you what, a CGC 5 is probably worth like $16, $17 on eBay right now. Mm-hmm. That's what you would probably see auctions of this card end for. If this was literally any other card in the hobby, with the exception of a card that I'm going after for my PC, I'd be fire selling the shit out of this. But the thing is by me fire selling it, eventually at the end of the line, there's going to be somebody out there stuck with this 5. Or here, I'll give you a real shit. Let me give you like a really shitty example of a card. Here we go. SGC 3.5. This card is worthless. GMA 4, worthless.
Oh gosh.
GMA 5, worthless.
Oh man.
PSA 5s, worthless.
So the thing about the hobby that I always talk about that I think is lost on a lot of folks is that these cards are they may be worthless, but they're not worthless because they are worth something to someone. Because I'm looking at someone right now who that card isn't worthless to.
Oh, no.
So while I agree with you, it's a worthless card. That's the kind of card you see in a collection. It's a raw card. I've probably got 5 of them within reach, just normal. But I do think that it's important for collectors like you to exist in the hobby, because like you said, at the end of the line, that card's gonna be stuck with someone. But I don't think you think of that card as being stuck with you. I think you enjoy that card, and I think you're perfectly happy with that 3.5, which is why you have it. And like you said, you'd be fire selling it right now if you had any intention to do so. So like, I think that collectors at a certain point, when things do hit that bottom, it's important for those collectors to be there. And like you said, not every card deserves to be slabbed, but I think certain cards, you're right, will probably hold a value. Even modern cards, I'd say, depending on the character, depending on what's popular at the time. But with 8s, with like high graded cards, I do feel like there is going to be, like you said, that you're going to lose money on an 8, you're going to get break even at a 9, and then you're going to make money on a 10, and that's probably where it's going to level. But it leads me to sort of ask that question though about those mid-era slabs. Like, There's so much of those out there now. And are those just going to suddenly become like broken out and put into binders again eventually? Or are those going to live in a box somewhere? Are people going to be happy with those? Because most of those are probably people's first slabs. So maybe it'll be a sentimental value sort of thing. A lot of people won't sell because when they sent the cards in, they were expecting a certain value back. And then when the time they got them back 2 years later, the hobby's dead and they don't know how to sell anyway. They don't even have an eBay account. And so that they just stash it in their closet probably. So I wonder if
Yeah.
there really will be as much of a crash. We've seen a big crash and a big correction so far. I don't know if we're going to see much more of one as far as it's concerned. I think they're going to keep trickling down a little, but I don't know how much more it could be. I think it might be at the point where it's like equilibrium.
I think this is a tough thing because when I look at a card like this, like these are the only cards I own like this. Does that make sense? Like I don't
That's the
own
only card you buy in mass like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like it's the only card that I would buy it in any grade because I see it come up on eBay and it's to buy it now of $12 or $11 or $10. And I look at the price of this card raw, opposed to if I want to grade it in the future, and like maybe this is a bad comparison because I am like a very rare collector for that. Like this has a huge crease in the bottom. Like that's why this got a 9, but or a 5. But to kind of answer your question of like, I don't know where is all these junk slabs? Because that's what that is, right? That's a junk slab.
To anyone
Where,
but you, it would be. Yeah, right.
yeah, like where does that wind up? It's just going to become dead e-liquid cards. And that's what it just becomes. They just become dead. They become e-liquid. And it's really, really some of these cards, like on the more higher end, now let's talk about 8s or 9s for some of this stuff. It's going to be so super hyper dependent on whoever's left after this boom. Like I'll look at a card like, like one of the most stereotypical hype modern cards, Charizard V from Champions Path, the promo that came in the ETB. That card in PSA, when it's all said and done, we'll see population reports of probably close to 25,000 cards. I think right now we're at like 17,000. And the only reason that more of them aren't being graded right now is because grading fees are $50 if you get the lotto or you got to pay $100. So, but trust me, there's a lot of those cards still. And it's probably more than 17,000, maybe. Now it's just one of those cards I'll look at and say, is a card like that in a 9 worthless? Is the only value in a 10? But then I'll even look at the 10 population and think, how strong does the hobby truly, truly need to be to keep that card at where it is today at $25? When you're talking that card now will have a total market capitalization or total market cap equivalent of like first edition base set 10s. It's going to have the same market cap of some of these really high end cards. It's like,
Do you own one of those, by the way, PK? One of those the graded Champions Path promos? I don't own one either. I don't even own a raw copy besides in my Champions Path ETBs that I have back there.
I have sealed Champion Path ETBs. I have a couple downstairs, but raw, no, 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 no.
Good. Now that's what we call a modern Pokemon bag. That's a
Yeah.
bag right there.
But I look at a card like that too as also easy money. Like for a time, you got that card, that was easy money. If you could get $25 for that card graded, trust me, you won. You won the Pokemon hobby if you
Right,
sold that
for a
card.
time. Yes. I think
Yeah,
for a time is important with that card because I think that card is going to become after a certain point a toxic asset. So you're right. I do think that card is still at a point selling. Gosh, it's a beautiful card though. I will say that like
sure.
objectively, I really enjoy the design of the card.
And if you like it, I would just, my recommendation to anybody would be like, just wait, pick it up for $15 and a 10 eventually. And
Oh,
at
yeah, and I mean I have it sealed, so for me
yeah,
that's in my personal collection. I like it sealed just as much as I would like it. I'm not a slab collector, but it's just
some,
funny to me that the market has decided that like that's the card, that's the one.
well, that's one of them. And I think some of grading in the future, if people want to pick up grading cards, eventually card prices are going to get so low for some of this graded stuff. It's going to start coming into what I call, you are now going to be paying the convenience fee. And
Yeah,
what is the convenience fee? It just means that card is graded in a 9, graded in a 10. You want that card. It's selling on the market for 15, 18, $20. You can buy that card raw for say $5, send it away for $10, wait a year to get it back. So you're into that card for $15. Or you get that card as buy it now on eBay for 20. You pay the extra 5 and then you pay what I call the convenience fee. And I just did it relatively recently with a bunch of Skyridge 9s, non-hollows, like the energies at the end of the set. It's like what number 143, 144, like bought those cards for $14 in PSA 9s. That card's probably $2.50 raw. Somebody sent it away for grading at $7. They're into it for $9.50, and I paid $14 for it. Guess what? All I did was pay the convenience fee. And that's the card that I now get to move on, and I don't need that to complete my set anymore. I just need to look for the other stuff. And then in the future, if I want to go super hard down the rabbit hole and upgrade that to a 10 and do all the stuff, it's like, then I could do it. But that little piece is done. So we might start moving into that with a lot of graded cards, and just the convenience fee of people still keeping the market artificially increased just because of that reason.
now do you think it's important that cards are super valuable and hyped up in modern, that they keep these like big chase Charizards, like these big like graded $800 $900 modern card sales for the hobby? Do you think it's necessary for like the type of consumer that Pokemon, or the type of consumer that Pokemon attracts now, for them to really keep up the hype? Or do you think that they would do just fine if they went back to like an era where it was sort of more like the black and white, where the hits weren't? Because I hear a criticism about Pokemon right now is that it's like the sets are too big, the hits are too flashy, there's too much, too quick. People are getting overloaded with like set like fatigue, and to me, I'm hearing two different things when I hear that criticism. On one hand, people, they don't like all this crazy flashiness because they're sort of overwhelmed by it and they have too hard of a time getting it. And on the other hand, they desire it and they eat it up. And when it's not there, it's like they're crying wolf that the hobby's dead because a card falls to a certain point, or modern Charizard X, Y, or Z isn't selling for $1,000 anymore, or the Chonkachu isn't $300 anymore, and so modern's dead. It's like, do we need these sets to have these crazy chase, like 1 in 1,000 card or 1 in 1,000 pack cards? Or is Pokemon like, do they, is it okay if they like switch directions, or should they switch directions and like heed some of that criticism and like maybe make it a little easier to pull things, make the set smaller? Because like you're a SM Pratt fan, right? Like his recent video about modern and how like the sets are just too big, and his takers are like, I just don't know what I can do. I can't keep up with it. I'm full-time Pokemon, and even I can't keep up with it. Like, do you find that to be a take that you think the Pokemon company is hearing, or you think they're going to go full steam ahead and just keep on doing what they're doing and just say to hell with the critics? Because what do you think about like that type of modern? Like, do you think there needs to be the chase card in it, that stonker card, or do you think it could be a little more mellow and a little bit more like slower and smaller and more compact, I guess?
I think it needs to be a combination of both. I think we as set collectors, we're very biased, like, because we think of that as like set collecting Pokemon. Literally, it's got to catch them all. So, got to collect them all, got to catch them all, got to have all the Pokemon. I think there is that like inherent chase to it. But I'll tell you right now, I need modern to stay hyped. And the reason, and that's to kind of like, I know I'm circumventing your question a little bit, but for me, when you're asking, like, where do I see modern? I need modern to stay hyped, because if modern does not stay hyped, all the buying pressure that is in modern right now, assuming that those people do not leave the hobby, If that buying pressure goes to the areas where I am buying cards right now, I will be priced out of this hobby. So one of the things that I love most about Modern is when I see super high prices for some of this stuff. And, you know, the first PSA 10 of some super bulky, character rare from Brilliant Stars in a PSA 10 selling for some crazy high price. It's like, sure, somebody was smart enough and had the balls to grade that card, express grade it through PSA and be the first to the market, and they got $300 for it. There was somebody out there that bought that card. I don't know who that person is. I will never know who that person is. I still to this day don't know who, and this isn't new. People have always been doing this. I'll never know who that person is. But if that money that those people are spending now trickled into what I am buying, I'd be priced out tomorrow. So I hope Modern stays hot. I hope Modern stays really heavy because I need Modern to keep this money funneled away from what I'm buying. Otherwise, my collection goals will just never happen. They'll be a thing of the past.
If you don't mind me asking, do you collect Modern? Are you a Modern master set collector, or where's your cutoff at typically right now?
Modern, I do have a very few Modern cards that I picked up just because like I either liked it or celebrations. I opened some celebrations just because I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, real nostalgic feel to it, whether it was from bringing back gold stars or level X cards or prime cards or, the base set, the big three, or the full art Pikachu, like the common card, or the Mew Gold Star, and all the fun things, because that's what Celebration, it had a little bit of everything. So I opened a little bit of Celebrations, not a lot. But when it comes to Modern, with the exception of a card that I really, really want, like again, Celebrations, like the Umbreon Gold Star was a card I wanted. I didn't pull that card, but I ended up picking it up for like $24. I want to say you could probably buy that card for like 17 right now. For me, I bought one of them. I don't have a big position. I have one because I wanted it.
Best card in the set, so it's a good choice.
Yeah, so I'll buy some Modern here and there, like the Mimikyu V from Brilliant Stars. I didn't want to try to pull that card. I picked that card up for like $14 or something.
Such a good card. Such
yeah,
good art.
It's the Mimikyu with him watching TV. You have Acerola behind him, like catching Mimikyu watching TV, and you can see the shadow from the TV. Like, awesome artwork. It cost me $14 to buy one 3-pack blister, or I just buy that one card and be completely done with the set, in my opinion. Like, I don't need to buy any more cards. Where's my play in Modern right now? I'm 100% sealed product play for Modern, because I think that's where the future of Modern is in a price point. There's always going to be the chase value to this sealed product. Whether or not you could actually ever pull anything from Modern's another thing. It doesn't change the inherent chase. So when people look at a booster box, they're going to always, and even like vintage, they're always going to look at what they can pull opposed to what they're actually going to pull.
So I oftentimes look at Modern, like a booster box, for example, and then I look at a booster pack of like base set, or I look at a vintage single booster pack, and I look at sort of equivalent value and where I can see the future going for these things. It's sort of a thought experiment I like to run with myself with a lot of Pokemon products. And for me, I can never, ever see a future where people will pay $20 for one pack of Chilling Reign. And that's not because I don't think there are awesome hits in Chilling Reign. And that's not because I don't think that people will want to open Chilling Reign in the future, or that they're going to forget about it or anything weird like that. I think it'll be a hype set for a long time. People look back fondly on it. But I think that the pull rates are so low in a lot of these Modern sets, and the print is so high, and there's so much speculation on it, that I think that when people look at it, they try to break it down in like pack for pack. They'd think of it like one vintage pack to one Modern pack, and then the equivalent amount of time they kind of do that in their head, and that's the math they're doing. Whereas instead, I think what really the math that I do, I look at it like a booster box is like one booster pack. And so in the future, do I see a Chilling Reign booster pack going for $20? Can I ever see somebody paying $20 for a single pack of Chilling Reign? Hell to the no. Because let's be real, one pack of Chilling Reign, you're probably going to get a green code card, a non-hollow Urshifu or Calyrex, and you're going to really be crying at the end of the day. But at a booster box, if you're opening 36 packs of a sealed booster box of something like a modern product, you're far more likely to not just get the one hit in the set that you're looking, but to have that experience of opening, that opening sort of visceral experience that people crave, that pack opening, that gambling, we'll say, experience, as well as more odds of pulling something. And so when I look at a booster box, I don't look at it as an individual, like 36 item sort of broken down item. I look at it as a one single item, especially a modern, ultra modern booster box. And so, like, in the future, could I see somebody paying let's say $300 to open a base set booster pack? Yeah, well, people pay $300 right now to open a base set booster pack, to get a non-hollow last, to get sort of that nostalgia, that experience of opening, to have that fun, that sort of level of experience. Can I see then somebody opening a booster box of Chilling Reign for $300 for an equivalent, like, experiential sort of fun opening experience? Maybe not today because Chilling Reign's available on the open market, but maybe in the future. Then when I think of it like that, I'm far more likely to say, well, hell yeah, I can see someone paying $300 for a whole booster box of a set that they look back on, that they're looking at the art, that they can't get from the distributor anymore, and sort of then move into like the realm of their head where they're more willing to pay more for this product. Whereas if you look at it as a single booster pack, no one's ever going to want a booster pack of Evolving Skies, Chilling Reign, Fusion Strike, one pack to pay a premium. But like when I think of it differently, like as these sealed booster boxes are different, I think the multiples go up. So for me, I'm very bullish on modern as well. So I agree with you. Modern sealed, I think I'm very bullish on. Modern singles, not at all. 100% different feeling. Like, and that's not because I don't think the art's great. And I think you probably would agree with that. But do you think that modern singles are gonna hold? What do you think about modern singles versus sealed? Because I bet you, I would venture to say you probably would agree with me on that factor. But why do you think that is?
Modern singles are going to crash. I think that's what it just boils down to. I think right now we are just scratching the surface at the true supply of these singles. And this is the thing about Pokemon. I've talked about it in some of my other videos. It's just macroeconomics 101. Like, if supply outweighs demand, prices increase. It's that simple. Like, you just saved, everybody out there who's watching this video just saved an entire semester of econ. Like, that's it. Demand outweighs supply, prices go up. So, but the problem is, with all this modern being open, who knows the true demand for some of these cards, or who is going to say like the true will for these people to hold these cards just because they opened it. Just because a lot of people like the Umbreon alternative art from Evolving Skies, which is probably one of the most expensive modern cards, or, the Charizard from Brilliant Stars. Now, for a lot of people out there, they're going to not look at that card as a card they really like. A lot of people out there are going to look at, do they like the money that card is worth more? So you might start to see like these cards trickle onto the market. And the truth is, a lot of the people doing some of the really big openings, and when I say really big openings, I'm talking about opening up the most product. Like, sure, maybe you as, a collector, anybody out there watching this, you open up like 1 to 2 booster boxes of a set, maybe 2 on the high end. Maybe you only open up 1. Maybe you only open up an ETB or a 3-pack blister. So for you, like, maybe you wouldn't have the reason to sell those, but the people doing the big box openings, they're running.
Can I tell you how many I opened yesterday in my stream, in a 4-hour stream, how many packs I opened?
Go ahead.
And this is normal. So this is to your point. Sorry to interrupt. I opened 7 booster boxes in a 4-hour stint, and that's completely normal for me. A case and then a little extra is about what I go through in every single stream that I sit down. And that's a normal stream, not a busy stream. So yeah, to your point, absolutely.
But I was talking, like, when I said you, I was talking to, more of the people.
Right, the viewer,
in YouTube land. But
viewer, an example of someone, because I'm a pack breaker, so right.
The people doing the real big openings, like these storefronts that are trying to sell singles and stuff, their business model is going to be based off of singles. So TCG player, stuff like that, there's going to be a lot of these cards, and there's probably going to be a lot of these cards forever, or at least not forever, for a very long timeline, even though pull rates for a lot of this stuff can be very hard. And if that's the case, and if we continue to see supply on the market for years and years and years to come, and price could potentially for the singles be super stagnant for a long time. And people are going to say, well, if prices are stagnant for the singles, inherently the sealed box price is also going to be stagnant. And throughout Pokemon's history, that's never the case. Sealed product versus the singles, it's very night and day, you know. And I always tell people out there that don't believe me, I say, listen, go out there right now, type into eBay and just type into Emerging Powers sealed booster pack. If you do not believe me that the price of the pack is different than the actual inherent value in the pack, look at that. I guarantee you can complete that entire set for the price of one booster pack.
You're telling me the Thunderous? You mean that full art Thunderous is not something that you are specifically jonesing after right now?
So maybe that one card will put you over like the $30 mark. So, you know, and then the rest of the set, maybe some of your hollows, you would just have to pick them up for like 90 cents. It's going to be make or break at that point. But if one pack could sell for $50, go look at eBay sold sales if people out there don't believe me. It's ridiculous. So when people make that argument when they're like, well, the price of the cards is going to dictate the price of the sealed product, that makes sense on paper, but in reality, it doesn't make sense. Or when just go look at the price of an unlimited light fossil pack. Light fossil packs, the inherent value in that is probably $5.
Big goose egg most of the time. Like, what are you hoping to pull?
But go look at how much a light fossil pack weighs for, and then tell me that that pack is somehow like inherent of the value of the cards inside. It's like, no.
Yeah. So we spoke a little bit about this before the stream, but I think we mentioned we were going to go live. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Pack rating, I just sent in a submission for pack rating. It's like, to me, the biggest scam in like Pokemon hits. And so go guys, go and buy these graded packs from me if you'd like. But just know, I do not think that graded packs are the best. So for collectors, that's one thing. But the reason I say it's a scam, and you guys can go watch my recent video if you'd like to on it, because I reveal and it's speak in 10 minutes about what I really think about it. But I got from the same case 5 light packs of base set, and 3 of them were 8s, and then 2 of them were 10s, and no 9s in between. But they were all flawless, except for one of the 10s had a small hole in the pack, whereas like a real hole, not like one of those air holes, like a literal puncture hole, whereas the 8s were sort of nicer and perfect. So I mean, it's just a big scam. But my thought behind pack grading is just like, it is purely, like you said earlier, a convenience fee for somebody if they're going to pay more for a graded pack than just doing it themselves. I think right now, like that, I should be treating like a toxic asset, because once pack grading becomes a thing again, I think it's literally just going to be sort of a convenience thing, because you can just literally go buy a light pack and grade it for yourself. Like, and you have just as much chance as me. Anyone out there is getting the 10, and I mean, it could be completely. So it's funny to me, because I just think it's interesting, because we will get back to a point where I think that the hobby regulates itself, but I think we're still at a point where it's a little bit irrational in certain things. And to me, the pack rating is still a thing. But yeah, I think it's funny because graded pack, you know, it's light. Whereas if I'm a blister pack collector, do you collect vintage sealed stuff at all?
Yep. And exactly what you just said is blister packs. And I've had Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles on my channel. I've talked to him through Instagram. I've talked to him, through, comment sections of videos. He's a very, very strong believer that you can weigh blister packs. I am a very strong believer that you cannot weigh blister packs.
I also believe you can weigh them, but
okay,
maybe I'm biased because I have a little bit of an experience with it, with several blister packs that I weighed and predicted correctly. And so I have a confirmation bias with that.
Yeah. But, and it could make sense, right? But in my opinion, and I've, heard what Rusty TCA Gaming's, his opinion on it is very similar to mine. He also does not believe you can weigh blister packs. Now, some of these older blister packs, can you look at the pack itself and see if there is a slight bend in the pack? Because usually those older hollows warp a little bit within the pack and you can see a little bit of a bend. That is a way to maybe tell if that's a hollow, but I don't believe you can weigh them. Again, strictly my opinion, and I have no scientific data to back this up on. I just going off what I've heard other people I trust in the hobby say.
So do you know on E4 there's an actual forum that is dedicated to blister packs, specifically mostly base set unlimited blister packs, because that's what the most samples and the most data is out there. Gary King Pokemon is very much so present on that forum, and he talks at length on the forum. There are also, I think, SM Pratt's on the forum and many other prominent figures that we've mentioned tonight. And so when I had an art set of shadowless potential blister packs, the short crimp, the red label on the bottom, trading card game, but potential shadowless blisters. And so I weighed all 3 of them when they got to me because they're from the same seller. And 2 of the 3 weighed 0.3 more, about 0.2 to 0.3 more than one of them did. And so it led me, because on my channel, I've always, if you've watched some of my content, I may have mentioned it in the past, but you guys probably watching already know this. I'm a huge advocate for weighing vintage loose packs. I personally think it's incredibly scummy when sellers try to sell like packs as being unweighed, and then when people sort of ask them about it, they're like, I don't own a scale, I would never. It's like, bro, you're just waiting till the camera's off and you're weighing it, and then you're saying that, because that is a complete lie. And if you're not, you're foolish. Because so I've always been an advocate for big transparency and like pack weighing. If it's a loose pack, you should always weigh it. Whether it's listed what the weight is, that is completely on the seller. And I think if someone approaches them and asks them if they have the ability, they should offer that weight, unless it's you're doing it in a break where you need it to be a level of like transparency where it's like there are heavies mixed into lights, you have a chance at pulling it, but I can't tell you what specific pack because you're buying at a unweighed rate. So I've always been a big advocate for like pack weighing in general, and I don't like the taboo that's around it. But that being said, because I had these 3 blister packs, of course I had to think to myself, well, I wonder if they're heavy, and I wonder if you can weigh them. And so I weighed them, put them on my scale, and I did find there was a differential. And so I went into a bit of a rabbit hole, and I went to E4 because E4 is a great place, a wealth of information for that type of thing. Found some forums, and I really went deep on it. And so I found on the forums, there was a lot of consensus. There's some folks who were saying that, yes, because the weight of the blisters, because if it's not from the same case, not from the same factory, if it was stored in a place where there was moisture, if it was stored loose versus sealed with other things and it absorbed moisture into the cardboard, it could possibly affect the weight. But if you possibly can take some of those variances out, or if you can assume that some of those variances are at least sort of blank, you can at least try. And with my personal experience and from what I found, there is some variance to blister packs. There's about a 2-gram variance. And with those 2 grams, if you can get a sample size from the same sort of like case, for example, you can actually somewhat reliably at least pick out heavier versus lighter packs. And so in my experience, I opened the 3 shadowless packs. They ended up not being shadowless. And so the first one was opened just to see if it was shadowless. And then the next 2 on confirmation, I was pretty sure weren't going to be. And so there were 2 hollows in the 2 heavier packs and 1 non-hollow in the lighter pack, just as predicted. So it was, I think, a little bit of a confirmation bias. So that's not enough data for me to really confirm like definitively I've weighed that many. But if I had 24 booster packs in front of me from a case, I would weigh the hell out of those. And I would document that. And on that forum, there have been people who have done so. And there's about a 2-gram variance between blister packs. That's what the info is.
So did you just weigh the cardboard afterwards with no packs in it and see if that there?
Do you still I should have, but I've never been able to replicate that. So I've found that whenever I open the pack and like take the cards out and then put it back in and put it on the weight, there's a slight variance of weight for whatever reason, even if all the pieces are still there. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's not a It's not something I really care about either because you don't buy blister packs to open. I guess you did, but for the most part, you don't
Only
open
because it was the shadowless, and I
it.
wanted, and it was for the content, and
Okay.
needed to know if it was shadowless or not. But
Well, for the most part, like I give an example of a blister pack. Like if you have a Skyridge blister pack, you don't open that. The value is in the pack. It's not in the chance of that being light or what heavy or light. The value is in that being in a sealed blister. Same thing with a lot of these older blisters. I would say a lot of that value is just in that. And
you would think there is a level of value that people will attribute to blisters because they intend on ripping it, though. I've ripped so much, and I only say that now. You say, I know what you're thinking. It sounds ridiculous, but I only say that because I have personally ripped and sold on my channel blister packs for the blister pack premium specifically to be ripped.
interesting.
And
I don't
you
know
know,
why
it's
they would do that.
it's because people don't trust. It's a level of not trusting anyone and having to have that confirmation of being really actually unweighed.
So the only blisters I could see the true benefit in those are multi-pack blisters. Like there's a
I've opened
couple
a few of
e-reader
those.
blisters that I feel like should get ripped way more. If you got like there's the 3-pack ones that have like
I've opened many of these. I've
yeah,
opened 5 or 6 of these, many of these.
yeah, and that comes with 2 packs, right?
Just one pack, but it's usually it's either an EX Dragon, a Fire Red Leaf Green, or a Hidden Legends pack.
Yep, yeah.
These ones don't come with a pack, but I have opened these thinking it came with an EX pack. This is an open version of it, actually.
Yep.
I've opened EX Fire Red Leaf Green packs, more than I can count. Unseen Forces packs, blister packs. I've opened Hidden Legends. I had 3 Hidden Legends, not a full art set, but 3 of them, which were opened on the channel as well. You would be surprised, BK. You would be very surprised at the level of degeneracy that people who like to rip packs will go to ensure that they're getting either a box fresh or a truly unweighed loose pack from vintage. Not for the value they're looking for out of that pack, but for the real true experience of getting a potential for like a random, a EX or whatever the hit is in whatever pack it is.
Well, what I was talking about was like the 3-pack blisters that some of them have like Hollum's Phantoms, Crystal Guardians, or it's like sometimes like 2 Hollum Phantoms, 1 Crystal Guardians, or a lot of these
like a promo card in it typically.
Yeah, and they come in like a 3-pack blister. Like those I can see people ripping all the time because then you go on super ballsy gold star hunts and stuff, like taking away just everything and just YOLOing it into something like that.
And it happens, and it's interesting. And we talked about the big Sandstorm box break, I think earlier. How I think somebody on Whatnot broke the Sandstorm box just to a personal break earlier this week, and that goes to that level of just there's a level of just fuck you money in the world and in this hobby that I think we're seeing right now that hasn't been in the hobby for a while, or if it was in the hobby, it was just really quiet. And I think it helps draw attention to the hobby, really. So,
sure.
So it's interesting to see it happen for sure. So but yeah, I will say that there's a level of degeneracy that happens with blisters. I would never open blister packs. See, I like my blisters. I like my sealed blister packs. Got my diamond and pearl, just random stuff.
Yeah. And a fossil,
yeah. I mean, and then some fun like Neo and
Neo, yeah.
Gotta have my magic packs too, and random old magic packs. I've been a long time blister collector as well.
Stormfront, yeah.
The only diamond and pearl that I have. Oh no, actually I have the base set.
You just showed me the base set, yeah. No,
yeah, as I said, I forgot that's a new one. I just got the base set recently, and I usually don't target that era. I specifically don't really enjoy the diamond and pearl era as much as like a lot of people do right now, because that's what's really hot right now.
Yeah, I mean, Stormfront is one of the best sets though, because it has
that's the exception. Yeah,
it has the 3 secret rares, the Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard, all reimagined artworks done by Arita. But who cares about those cards? That has the level X Raichu in it. So the level X Raichu
I forgot it does have the level X Raichu.
So because it has the best level X of the Diamond and Pearl block, because Raichu is the best Pokemon, it's also the best set. So no, that's a good blister pack you got there.
Do you like the new Raichu full art from Brilliant Star? And how
Yeah.
upset are you that they didn't give it an alternate art? Are you ready to fight the designers of Pokemon Company right now?
No, I'm fine with that. I'm just happy there's a nice full art Raichu finally. I think Brilliant Stars is just a slam dunk of a set. I think it's going to be one of those sets that when we look back, this is the crazy thing is what is this time of the Pokemon hobby, what is it going to be like when we look back on it? And how do we look back on 2020 and 2021, 5, 10, 15 years from now? Do we look back on it as, oh my God, look at all the irrational behavior all of us had? Pokemon just crashed and burned, and now here we are standing on the ashes. Are we going to look back on 2020, 2021, and we're going to look back on it the same exact way we look back as not on 99 and say, wow, we were living in something freaking special, guys. And when we talk back on it, we're going to look at it with just like this nostalgia, because I'll tell you right now, with all honesty, my nostalgia for this time in the hobby right now is way better than any nostalgia I have for like 2016 and the Pokemon Go boom, or 2014 or 2012 when I got in. Like, I do not have crazy nostalgia for that timeline. Pokemon wasn't something overly special. It was just something like that was extremely fun that I was just doing as a hobby. I have a feeling we look back on 2020, 2021, 2022 with a very different set of eyes 5, 10, 15 years from now. Again, this is speculative as a conversation you could have, and no one truly knows. But I think there'll be a lot of people that look back on this, and we will look back on it potentially as a huge turning point or a catalyst for wherever Pokemon winds up in 10 years from now. We'll be able to look back at days like today or last year or the hype, and we'll be like, that was it, guys. And we'll be like, holy shit, all the points were there. It was obvious. And I don't know. What do you think? How do you think, if you had a time machine and you could hop in your DeLorean and you could go to the future with, and look back, and what would your future self say 2020, 2022, 2021? What was that like?
I think what you said is, I would probably agree with a lot of what you said, in that I think it's a lot of people's origin stories. I think with a lot of people with the Pokemon, you said it with 2016, I think there was a lot of hype around it, but it wasn't around the TCG as much. It was around that helped the TCG, and that awareness of Pokemon got brought back to the mainstream. People were talking about it again. But then the real awareness of it happened in 2020 more than anything. And so I think that it's going to be looked back on very, at least for myself personally, be looked back on fondly, because I used it as an escape. And because of that, it became a very dear thing to my heart. And I think, a lot of us as kids, we were nerdy little kids to a certain extent playing Pokemon cards. We used it I always would say that I used it as like a conversation starter. I would walk up to kids with my binder and I'd say, hey, you want to trade? And that would be how I would meet people. So like when I'd go up to new groups, that would be sort of an entryway for me. So like I think that it is going to be looked back on fondly. And I think that people will remember this time, and it'll be nostalgic, even more so to some people than what that early days are. So I tend to agree. And what I'm doing about that is I am investing, using the I word here, in the future of Pokemon, because I plan to be around for that future. I think a lot of people look at Pokemon like they want to idealistically see that they're going to be in it for the long term. But for the vast majority of people, they're going to be in and out of it really quickly. Life happens. Maybe at a certain point in your life, you have a little bit of disposable income to spend on Pokemon cards, and another time you don't. And so I think a lot of people will be in and out of it a lot. But for what I'm personally doing about it, I do believe that regardless of what individuals do getting in and out of the hobby, I think that the hobby itself will stay around. And I do believe that because of that, I will be, and I am actively investing in some product that I believe is going to be looked back on fondly. And because of that origin of what brought people in the hobby, and from my particular origin, I am invested heavily in Hidden Fates. And I think that I'm not the only one in the world. I think that that's not a big surprise. Like, wait, hold on, guys. We better cut this out. Cut this. We don't want to tell people about Hidden Fates PK. I don't think anyone's heard about this set yet, but maybe we'll be okay if I shill Hidden Fates just a little bit right now. But that's a set that I personally have said many times that I can see a single pack of Hidden Fates going for an extreme premium in the future. More so than a single pack of something like Chilling Reign or Vivid Voltage or Brilliant Stars or Evolving Skies. Because I do think that there is a level of like, it's special. It's a special set. And I don't feel the same way about Shining Fates. I think Hidden Fates and Shining Fates are two different sets. I think you try to bottle lightning with Shining Fates, whereas Hidden Fates, it was like lightning struck and made this beautiful structure. And then the second time they tried to like make this artificial lightning strike and it made this weird misshapen structure that everyone bought because there were more of them. And so that's how I feel about Shining Fates. But Hidden Fates, I feel completely differently about. So I've oftentimes said, I believe Hidden Fates is the best set possibly of all time. But we're I think yet to see that. Even it's either Unseen Forces or Hidden Fates for me. Those two are up there.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway we're going to probably have for the future is how are people that are in the hobby right now? It's just going to kind of wind up being how are they engaging with the hobby? Because how me and you are engaging in the hobby right now with our channels and, you know, me and you got to think about this short timeline. Me and you met each other at the end of January at the Leonhardt Pop Shop. You came on my channel. We had a couple hour long conversation. And by the time of April, I had another long conversation. I have some of my best friends in my personal life that I haven't talked to in 3 times since the end of January. And like me and you know, are now friends. And then when I look into the future and I say, okay, let's just say we talk to each other twice a year for the next 10 years. There's a potential that, you know, I come on your channel once a year, you come on my channel once a year. 10 years from now, including this year, we've now like had 13 different interactions with each other, or sorry, 23 different interactions. And then not including if me and you meet each other again at another, you know, event in person, stuff like that. How you interact with the hobby too, for a lot of people out there, is really going to keep you around too, in my opinion. Like the more you are, you know, engaging with the community, the more you're experiencing it, the more you're having fun, the more you're going to want to keep doing this, in my opinion. And now, is everybody going to do that? Is everybody going to go to that next step? No, probably not. But trust me, there is a lot of friendships and a lot of relationships that were built out of this period of time. And a lot of those relationships and friendships are going to stick around for a freaking long time. And some of them might actually segue outside of Pokemon, and people might drop out of Pokemon, but still stay friends. It's going to be this weird thing.
Yeah, and it's such a good thing to see too, because like you had mentioned earlier, the hobby for so long was such an individual thing, and it felt like something you kind of had to do to yourself, or you couldn't really, it wasn't really celebrated to really interact with the hobby in such a way. But I do feel like that interaction or that dynamic has 100% 180 shifted. Maybe that's not going to be the case forever. Maybe that's just pop culture right now because Marvel's popular and everyone, you know, likes that kind of stuff. And Pokemon's in the main stage because of that 5 point something million Illustrator sale, and everyone loves money. But I think there's a little more to it than that. I do believe that there's something to it. And you know, if they ever make that Pokemon MMO that I've been talking about for years, then you know, then they'll be on to something. So Pokemon, you can pay me royalties on that one when we finally make it. But open world MMO, that'd be a good one. But I think the days of the MMO are over, though. I'm dating myself talking about old, massively multiplayer online games. But sort of bringing it back, though, I do want to say it's been really a pleasure talking here because I think we've been able to cover a whole lot of things, but there's one thing that we haven't really covered, I think, as much as, and I think we need to know, the people need to know, what do you think? Now, this is something that I've been hearing a lot about on all these channels. Now we're 2.5 hours into the the talk, and we've covered most of the questions I wanted to. But
Yeah,
I want to know a speculative question from you now that you would never answer on your own channel, but maybe since my channel is a little smaller. But what do you think about ultra premium collections, my friend? Do you think that they, because I thought it was really funny when on the last stream you were on, somebody asked about ultra premium collections, and they were like, what's going on? They keep going in price. Should I buy? And you're like, it's a little high right now. You kind of had a good chance, but do you think they're going to keep on going up? Or I have a position in ultra premiums as well, so I do believe they are. But do you think that we're in for a big crash on those, or what do you think about that product?
No. So again, I don't like to be super speculative on modern. I do have ultra premium collections. I was able to pick up one from Best Buy at MSRP, so I got super lucky. Now, the thing about ultra premium collection is it's going to be really tough for those to crash without a insanely high reprint. And the reason why is because when prices for those start to retrace, there's just way too much buying pressure on the way down for that thing. Like, I don't even know. To be honest, I don't follow ultra premium collection. A lot of people have been asking me about it recently. I don't follow the price daily because I don't have enough that it's like a market mover for me or anything I'm looking to get rid of. I'm looking at it as a longer term investment.
Yeah, I'm
But
strictly memeing by the question because it's
yeah,
like the most pop. Danny Phantom made a video about it. Like
yeah.
everyone's making these ultra premium videos right
But
now.
if
It's just like
prices for that crash, there's buying pressure for that thing on the whole way down. And like, what is a crash for that? For it to only be 2 times MSRP, for two and
right.
a half times MSRP. MSRP for that's $120, like 119.
I'm in
There's
at ultra premiums at 200. My distributor
okay.
was selling them for 200. So that was
Yeah.
my price point as a, so
Even at 200, what are they selling for now? Like
they're 300,
300?
they're over 300. They,
Okay.
they're 300 and rising. And so I don't ask for my own. Like I said, I am invested in them. So full disclosure, I have a case of ultra premium collections. I'm no nostalgianomics with like 20 of them, which props on him. Cause like if I had the ability to buy that many, I would have, but I was getting Evolving Skies at the same time because at that same time period, Evolving Skies was 95 to 100 a booster box. And so a
Mhm.
lot of what my modern was going towards was that. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, buy Evolving Skies at $100 as well. And so it was interesting because at that time the market was dead and everyone thought Pokemon was, everything was reprinted to oblivion. Modern was dead. That Fusion Strike dump just got hit with all the others. So it was a very interesting time at that time. But now I think that's sort of over with. Though right now we're seeing a lot of Fusion Strike going on the market because last month that $11,000 distributor deal hit all these local game stores. They took the offer. The 1 month was just expiring sort of at the end of this last
Mhm.
month. So that's where we're seeing that Fusion Strike right now. But
Yeah, that's just I don't know. It's just tough. It's one of those products that like the writing's been on the wall for a long time. This is the crazy thing though, is the fact that you said prices keep increasing. And the only thing that I don't understand is who is the person who's like, now's the time to buy? You
the
know?
person who, so I will tell you, it's the person who went on to Facebook Marketplace and went on to Verbank and they read the comment section. So here's why it's so dangerous to go to these marketplaces and read comment sections. I was selling ultra premium collections at that time. I got them for 200. I was selling them for 269. That was market price
Nice.
at the time. And
Nice.
people were trying to lowball for 200 to 225. I'd be like, yo, I can't do that. I get them for 200. They're like, yeah, right. You get them from a distributor. You get them for 79.99. It's printed to oblivion. You've got a whole. And I was like, okay, well, that you won't get them then. And I probably sold 8 to 12 to 8 to 12 of them in that time period when they were going for about 269. And I will tell you, the comment section in my sales posts were so toxic with people who had no distributor, with people with no sales, saying these things like, oh, that's going to get reprinted. You're a scalper. That's way overpriced. Just wait. They would literally laugh, react the people who would comment and ask about it. They'd laugh, react, and shame them into not buying, saying,
Okay.
don't buy from this guy. He's a scammer. It's going to crash. You want to wait till you get it for. And so the people who are buying now at that $300 mark are the people who are in those groups reading and listening to the other people. And now they're doing the same thing. They're listening to those same people who were back then telling them, don't buy from that scalper, who are looking at these videos online, seeing the prices. They're saying, oh no, there's no reprint. Buy now before it's 500. And so it's people who can't think for themselves are those people. So think for yourselves, people. Don't be one of those people.
You can go back and listen to my videos. And that was one of the, people have been asking about ultra premium collections for a long time. And I talked about ultra premium collections when they first came out. And I said, if you want an ultra premium collection, like now is the best chance you're going to get to pick that up at MSRP. And the only way you're going to do that is you have to follow all the TCG drops on Instagram. You need to have notifications set on your phone. When those tweets come out, you need to have your phone on you. You need to immediately have Best Buy saved on your homepage as a favorites. You need to already have the link for Ultra Premium Collection. When Pokemon Center drops them, you need to already have like the link set up into your phone. So when it's not available on the Pokemon search bar, you still have the direct link saved to your favorites. When you talk about like GameStop and having it and having pro memberships and doing all the things you have to do, being very mindful that you might have like a 2-minute window to pick this stuff up, or Target dropped them. It's like when Target dropped them or when Walmart dropped it, and then understanding the difference that Walmart does different drops. Sometimes they drop it at MSRP. Other times they drop it by some fucking third party guys selling it for $400, and like being able to navigate the Walmart website. To some people, they might not even understand, what do I mean by that? Yeah, you have to navigate Walmart's website. So
be careful on Walmart's website, by the way. There's shadiness on there. Yeah,
exactly.
To anyone who is looking at Walmart right now.
Yeah. So like, that's what I mean by navigating Walmart. But like, that's when Ultra Premium Collections first came out. And I told people, I was like, okay, this is stuff you need to do. And then some people said, well, what do you think about it now? And I think at the price, when I said to people, you could start picking them up, was at like 160. And you just said you were getting it for 200. And at the price, the market price was like 160 for a little while.
Yep.
So
it went down. It dipped below that for that short period of time.
Well,
yep.
I'm just saying, like, when I gave my advice, it was at the 160. And I told people, I was like, listen, if you want it, you might have to pay the convenience fee now. The convenience fee is going to be $40. You can pick it up for the 119, or you pay the convenience fee and you pay the 40, and then you have it and you could sleep easier at night. And then sure, if it crashes down the MSRP, you're down $40. Now, that's such a long, in my head, that conversation was so long ago now, So
and it
now
was only 4 months ago now? Was it January?
For me, that was a long time ago, because for modern, this is where the tricky part about modern is. Modern, you got to live in the now for some products and navigate modern and understand like what is truly going to get a reprint, what is probably not going to get a reprint, what makes the most sense. And it's like, for me right now, you're a big Evolving Skies fan. I'm big
getting a reprint. It's getting a reprint. Yes,
exactly.
I have no inside information that says this. I will tell you, I'm with Danny Phantom on this. It is getting a reprint. Mm-hmm.
And all day long, I'd say Evolving Skies is getting a reprint. And then, Brilliant Stars, people are like, you think Brilliant Stars will be reprinted in the future?
Hell yes.
Brilliant Stars is the newest possible set. There is no other set around it. Like, we're not taking Brilliant Stars out of reprint conversation, guys. Like,
it's one of the best sets they've released. Yeah. I mean, how many times did they reprint Vivid Voltage? Like, I mean, in the last couple of years.
Exactly. Or people talk about, even Vivid Voltage, when that was like this weird new collector. I don't know where these people came from. And I always talk about this on my videos. People love to quote that Vivid Voltage hit $300 a booster box.
I never saw that, but I never saw it. 220.
Josh, I never saw it people tell me all the time
220
that it
though.
did.
No, it
Dude,
never happened. I don't know
I
that
was
number.
super engaged with Modern at the time. I
Yeah,
did not see Vivid
it,
Voltage hit
it did
300, but
not
people
happen.
love to
I don't know
tell
if
me
that's
it
like,
did.
yeah, people who are saying that number, it didn't happen. 220 was the highest. I
Yeah.
sold it all the way up to 220, and 200, there was a lot of difficulty selling at that. When I say 220, I mean 220 with like shipping and
Yeah.
taxes, and so it's
Yeah.
closer to 200.
But like I was saying, like people talk about prices and stuff, and for I'm not like so super. I live in the day to day for Modern when it comes to price points for me to get in at. Once prices start to creep up or hit unrealistic dollar amounts or amounts that are no longer entry points for me, to be honest with you, I start to ignore those products for Modern. Like
Mm-hmm.
it stops being on my radar. So when prices start to increase, like I don't hold so much Modern that I need to live in the day to day of the price going up. I own enough that I need to live in the day to day of prices going down. The products that I am most aware of are the products for Modern that are at their cheapest points, because that's what I'm going to be interested in. That Chill and Rain at 80, that's where I'm a buyer. Battle Styles at 77, that's where I'm a buyer. Evolving Skies at 95. Knowing what Evolving Skies was, knowing the type of set it was, understanding the market a little bit more than probably the average person, I
95
look at
bucks all day.
I look at 95 as being that's a strong entry point,
Yeah.
because I always look at what is my downside. And what is my downside at a $95 Evolving Skies booster box? It brings me to worst case scenarios, $80. That means
70, 80 bucks. Yeah.
I lose
Like,
$15 per booster box. What do? I buy a case of 6, so I lose $90. You guys, I just showed you a fucking box of PSA 5 Raichus. Trust me,
he's not afraid of
$90.
losing 90 bucks, guys.
$90,
Yeah.
yeah, like that doesn't keep me up at night, you
Yeah.
know? And then like again, Brilliant Stars creep down to like 115, 110. I was able to get very lucky. I picked up my booster boxes at 105.
Wow.
Brilliant Stars might get a reprint and prices might go back up, but I was very happy at that dollar amount,
At
you
this
know?
point, I do see Brilliant Stars getting a reprint and it
Oh,
not affecting the price as much, like you just referenced. I actually think that's an interesting point to make, but I
yeah.
kind of agree with that.
But even if it does, it's like, where are you comfortable with? But now I went on the record, and there was like one of my more famous videos, and I'm not going to get into like what that video is about, but I went on a pretty big rant where somebody had talked about how I shouldn't preach patience all the time. And in that video, Chill and Rain at the time was like 130, 140. And in that video, I was saying, I don't own Chill and Rain, and I think it's going to get reprinted. And yes, you're right. I am telling everybody to be patient. And I just talked about Chill and Rain. It was like a 140, and then it dropped to 80,
Mhm.
because a lot of this stuff, and people, this is the crazy thing. People say you can't predict what Pokemon's going to do. You can't time Modern. You can't do all these things.
You
And while
can.
maybe that is true to a sense, for the majority, Modern has been extremely predictable for the most part. There are always the outliers, like one of the outliers being like Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs for Chill and Rain. There was never a reprint. There was the Air ETBs that had 8 packs. They were supposed to be 10. Everybody said eventually they're going to do reprints. It's going to have the proper 10 packs in. That never came. Evolving Skies Pokemon Center ETBs, which is still definitely a possibility. Everyone says those are going to get reprinted. Those ETBs lasted on the Pokemon Center for like a half hour. And even then, the website was crashing and booting and blocking people and doing everything it does. There's some stuff that you can't time. Those I wasn't ready for. I thought there would be reprints. Now, for some of this stuff, though, I do believe you can time it. And again, is Modern investable, is Modern collectible? You open up packs for a living, or a big part of your day is going on Whatnot and opening up packs. How many people on Whatnot at any second or any minute of any day are opening packs, and they're selling it to somebody? That is demand. Even if for every 1,000 people out there that join Pokemon in 2021, for every 1,000 people, even if 1 out of every 10 people stay, that's still 100 new people for every 1,000. the amount of people in Pokemon exploded and it's gonna explode. I don't know. This is like where I'm too bullish.
No, so I agree, because when one of my big things that I like to do before I go on and stream is I always count to see how many people are streaming as well, just because it's just fun to know like who else is on. And when I first started on the app, it was right after Battle Styles came out. I think it was February of last year.
Mhm.
There were typically between 3 and 5 other Pokemon streamers streaming at any given time on Whatnot. Sometimes during prime time, you get up to 10, 15, maybe on a really big Saturday, Friday night kind of thing. But for the most part, it wasn't hugely competitive. Now, when I turn on the app, now that the hobby has kind of cooled off and died, or whatever it is that people say about the hobby these days, I see usually on average between 30 and 50 people, with 50 being closer to the average on the normal times. Whereas if you're looking at late at night or early in the morning or in the middle of the day in a off Tuesday, Wednesday kind of weekday, you're looking at more 30 to 40 streamers at any given time. And in
Wow.
every single one of those streams, there's between, we'll say in 80% of them, there's between 1 and 20 viewers. And in say 20% of them, between 20 and 100 viewers. So, and that's only in the Pokemon category. We're not talking about MetaZoo. We're not talking Magic the Gathering, sports cards. So, absolutely, there's demand right now for that type of experience. And just talking about how whether you can time or not time modern, I'll say as a business, full disclosure, I run my business based, I sell more modern than anything else. My business isn't based on singles, it's based on packs, modern pack breaking. And so with that being said, I can absolutely time the market. I can tell you, a detailed business report of what I'm expecting from my inventory versus what I get in a normal set versus a hype set versus not. There's a little bit of outliers. There are some sets, like, for example, Celebrations and Brilliant Stars, that actually boomed and actually helped quite a bit more than a set like Fusion Strike, which when Fusion Strike hit, it actually was a hurt. It was a net negative for the market for the most part. And so there are a little bit of that leveling out that you can't predict, but with any sort of business, that's sort of how it goes. But I will tell you with full confidence, you can time modern. You can run a full business based on it. I know plenty of people who do.
Yeah. Hey Josh, it's getting late. I got work in the
Yes.
morning.
Yes. And so we have been, yeah, right. I meant the ultra premium collection to be the last little speculative question, and we definitely keep on going. But as we mentioned earlier on the stream, we're going to do a live YouTube market chat at some point later on in the future. I know Pokeknowledge has some awesome guests coming onto his channel, so make sure you go and subscribe there so you can see some of those. And if you're not already, if you made it this long, I'm sure you are, but make sure you're subscribed here as well. Hit that little button down there. It helps me quite a bit. But yes, it's getting late here, and I know you're on the East Coast, so let's go ahead and tie it up there. I do want to end by saying thank you again, though, because this has been a lot of fun. As always, I can sit and talk the market chat with you literally for hours, and I'm sure we will in the future. So it's nice to have it all recorded too.
And that's a beautiful thing about this hobby is people don't even realize out there watching this video that we were talking for a half hour before this even started, because we do this because we want to do this. We do this because we love this. And everybody says, like, what's the secret formula for Pokemon? It's just this right here. It's just sitting down, chatting, talking Pokemon. This is the best thing in the world. And if I didn't have work in the morning, we would probably talk for, another couple hours. So
yeah, if we ever, God forbid, we catch you on a Saturday, when it's actually a weekend and not a weekday, then we're in for it. I'll have to apologize, send your wife a gift basket for saying sorry for taking your husband from you. But yeah, guys, we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you go follow this guy. We're gonna go and head and cut it there, but we'll see you on the next episode here. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in, guys.
See you later, everyone.